All right, so this week we are just going over views, which is actually pretty easy. I was just telling Emily this, but basically the views are this week's pretty light, and I think it's on purpose because of everything going on, and which is good. It's stressful enough as it is. So this week's pretty light as far as like overall just the learning curve. So views are really just queries, which is pretty cool. And I just kind of want to point out a few kind of key points from the PowerPoint before we kind of do a couple. And this meeting will be really short, so we can kind of move on. But anyways, views are basically, like I said, select statements, but they act just like a table, like for the most part. So like we can create a view, and for like the average user, they're never even going to know that it's not an actual table. And what's really nice is you've probably seen from a few examples from the book, if you gleaned it, if you've already kind of read through this or seen my announcement, is that there's some really cool things you can do with views, like like hide parts of the email address. So like for security reasons, we could hide, we could just exclude parts of the social security number, or like if we have like call agents that need to verify the last four, we can only show the last four without having to change our underlying data, because we don't want to store anything twice, right? That's the whole purpose of a relational database is we want to be in first normal form where we don't have any data duplication. And so what's really nice is we can leverage views to kind of pull these unique kind of views, which is, I know that sounds funny, but that's where they got their name. We can pull these unique data sets off of our pre-existing data and format it the way we want so it fits our use case. So like I said, like hiding bits of sensitive information is one. Another one might be to like pre-aggregate data. So like if we just wanted like all the customers and their total lifetime spend is kind of like a report that we use frequently, we can do that. And we're going to go over a couple of examples after we kind of get over this PowerPoint. So anyways, just a couple of things I wanted to point out. This kind of goes over like some of some nice things that you can use views for. Like this one shows like hiding some sensitive information. This one goes over hiding, or not hiding. It goes over like aggregating some data, data security, data aggregation, like we talked about. And the last one's hiding complexity. So for example, one of the examples we're going to go over, and what I did in the announcement is we kind of went over, I built a view that would kind of show basically, a commonly used kind of like set of queries, of joins, and we can make that look like one single table. So I like to think of a view as like our spreadsheet. So normally, before you guys knew about databases, 13 weeks ago, most of us kind of thought data was stored in like spreadsheet like things, which it is. But, when we usually build a spreadsheet, we're usually kind of like putting everything in one single table, which is pretty common because we kind of want to work off one thing. And to me, like views are kind of the answer to that. Views are what we can use to hide all the complexity of all these interconnections between the spreadsheets, and we can just give one view that works for a single use case, which is pretty cool. So views can do anything. You can join against views. You can even update views. Now there are some catches to updating views, but technically, like we could write a view of just like a customer's first name, last name, and address. And as long as we meet certain criteria, we could update their last name based on that, which is helpful for like people that need access to certain bits of data, but not all of it. So I think like updating views is honestly something I've actually never done. It's cool you can do it, and I can see the use case, but for the most part, businesses choose to handle updating data through like other layers, like your API layer, your application layer. It's going to handle the permission side of things. So most people don't go ahead and do views for that. However, one of the other really nice use cases for a view is, like I said, part of the complexity thing, but like if there's like for those of you who did the final, if there's like a screen that you want to show like a bunch of different data for, you can create a view that kind of pulls that for you, that you then like turn into JSON to serve, or just use that to populate the website. So that way, in your code, you're not showing like 100 joins. You can just do select everything from this view and it's already done, hides that complexity for like the front end developers. So anyways, it's pretty cool. We'll go through a couple of examples here really quick. So let me open up my Workbench. All right. So, and I'm going to cheat because this first one I've already done the legwork on. So I'm just going to kind of pull off that here since I've already thought about it before I think of some other use cases. But anyways, let's say that I have, a typical query. And in this case, kind of what I've used is I'm going to use the customer data to kind of leverage this query. So here we can see that basically, let's make sure we're using Sequila. All right, so here we can kind of see where we're getting a bunch of information from our customer, address, city, and country. Really, it's our customers with their address information. Which again, this one speaks to hiding the complexity and a couple other things. It makes it a little bit more user friendly. You can see where I'm kind of pulling some of these addresses together. And after the fact, while I'm here, I did realize that I had a error here where I'm coalescing this because I'm concatenating this, which is wrong because that will never be null because it's anyways. Long story short, I think I just need to take off this. Instead of coalescing, no, I think that works. Coalesce, empty, yes. We'll try it. Anyways, we can play with them. So let's run this. Basically, we're getting a bunch of data here. And what I want to check is I want to check this number here for someone who maybe has an address linked to, and I don't know if there is one. Well, we can just write a query. We can just add a where clause here to check. Where a dot address to is not null. Let's just make sure we're doing this right. On this one, okay, so we're getting a space. Perfect. Oh, and I guess it doesn't matter. If it is null, we do nothing. Okay, we'll just leave it as is. That's fine. It gets a little weird, but we're not going for perfect here. All right, so we kind of have this data set that will pull all the customers with their address information. And you'll notice that I included IDs, which I'll show you why here in a minute, which is really nice. But to make this a view, all we have to do is before the query, just say create or replace. And really the or replace is optional. We could just say create view as v underscore, create view v underscore customer as. And at this point, it'll create it. I like to always just use create or replace because that way we can just rerun this over and over and it will fix things as we want. So it's just like a table. Once we kind of define it, it's there. But if we use this or replace, basically it'll automatically update it for us, which is really nice. We don't have to drop it first, then re-add it. And just so you know, like what I like to do is because I want to know this one, I mean, when we're in Workbench, it'll separate it, but I like to put view. I like to kind of in the title say what this is. I like to denote that it's a view. So I like to do v underscore. So that way, if I'm looking at a list of all of my objects, I can see that like, oh, anything prefixed with v underscore is a view, and they still are all alphabetical and everything. So I like to kind of prefix this so that when we join it with other things, we can do that. So I'm going to run this, and it says that 0 rows affected. It ran successfully. So Now what's nice is now forever, and I'm just going to refresh this so we can see that our views here are working. So now inside of our view, you can see I have a couple here, but we have our v_customer. And what's really nice is now I can just go ahead and say select everything from v_customer. And I get that just, a lot easier. So basically it's like saving a query that we can then use just like a table. Because now if I wanted to say, I want to see all the customers, their address information, and the total number of dollars that they've spent, right? So now all I have to do is I can just add to this. I can just say, select, let's just add a subquery. Let's say select the sum of amount from payment where customer ID is equal to, and I guess we need to give this a name. And now we have that same view just with our total revenue on the side. So it makes it really nice. We could also just join this data. So like if we wanted to see all of our customer information with their addresses, as well as all their payments, we could just, do a left join on our payment P where the customer ID is equal to our customer ID. And that's why I like to include, anytime I put a table inside of a view, I personally like to include the IDs because they can be useful when counting. Like if I want to say, oh, how many distinct cities do customers live in? How many distinct stores, those kinds of things, which is really nice to have the IDs. And it's also useful because then we can join things to it. So like in this case, I can just say p.everything. And here's all of our customers, all the original information from the view, and all the payment information. So you can see that they become really, really useful. You can do a lot of cool things with these. You can aggregate those kinds of things. So like if we wanted to create a view, so let's do another one. So like we've done in the past, let's take our number of payments, and we are going to do the total number of payments by customer. So I'm just going to select C dot customer ID, C dot, what is it? First name, C dot last name, and we'll leave the address off this one. So C dot first name, C dot last name. Let's get their email, and then we're going to get our payment information. So the sum of amount, P dot amount. And let's do this. Let's group this by month. So we're going to say month name, P dot payment date as payment month. And we also want the payment, so the month of payment dates. That way we get a nice number to sort on. Let's call this payment month name, payment month. As total revenue from customer C, left join, payment P on C dot customer ID equals P dot customer ID, and then we're going to group by, and basically we're just going to group by all these. So I'm just going to snag those and then just add payment, month name, and payment month. And there we go. So now we have all of our customers, a month that they rented and how much. So now if we want to make this a view, just same way we did before, whoops, same way we did before, we're just going to say create or replace view, and we're going to call this one customer. Oh, we need to prefix it. So v underscore customer monthly revenue as, and then it's as the select statement. Boom, there we go. And now we can just say select everything from v underscore customer monthly revenue. And we have it there. And we probably should have added year. Doesn't make much sense to have month without year, but anyways. Cool. So there's that. And oh, and I guess we might as well do it. So if we need to update one, what we're going to do is we're going to say the year of p dot payment date is payment year. And I'm even going to concatenate this one. I'm going to say concat. Let's do that, a dash, and then we want, do we want the month number? Yeah, let's do the month number so that way we can sort it better. So year dash the month as payment year month. And then down here, we can just add these two things to our group by. We did something wrong here. Missing a comma. There we go. So that actually updated the view. So now I can just rerun our select statement on the view. And now we have our stuff here. So now we're actually properly kind of diagnosed, have monthly revenue. Cool. So anyways, you can see how, like, if this is something you're going to look at a lot, or if this is going to feed a report online, or, you know, you want this to be something that's readily accessible, you can just create a view for it. And then what's nice is you can use that if for whatever reason someone comes to you and says, hey, I want to see, you know, how much total revenue in a year, you know, per customer. You don't necessarily need to rebuild this query. You can just build the query right off here where we say, you know, select the customer ID and the sum of, and we want the year. So payment year and the sum of, what did I call that column? Total revenue from group by, and then we can just add our two columns here. Bam. So it saves you a lot of work. So even if it's not like something that's going to be the final report, if it's commonly joined things, then it can be really helpful. So like another one might be film actor, you know, because we're constantly, I mean, throughout just these weekly videos where we were constantly joining from actor to film and film to film categories, you know, those kinds of things that are common things that, you know, structurally they make sense for the business logic of the business. They make sense, but they become very tedious typing up all the time. That's what views are perfect for, and amongst all the other things. But anyways, that's pretty much what I had. I think highly recommend you try out a couple of the views. They can actually save you some time. But other than that, hope it's a nice kind of light, easy end to the term. Hope you can get all your stuff done, because hopefully this class isn't too hard. So some of your other ones, because I know many of you are in some rough classes. So hopefully this one isn't too bad. And hopefully this end of this week should be pretty light. Does anyone have any questions before we jump off?
I do.
Okay.
If somebody else passes off a database to you, you know, you're not familiar with what views are there, how can you find those?
So the best way, yeah, because views are kind of the one problem with views is because they hide complexity. If they have an error, it's something you want to be made aware of. So often you need to dive in and see what's going on. And so what you can do is you can actually in Workbench and many of the pretty much all of the IDs, you can actually go into the view. So like, for example, if I want to see my V customer, I can actually go in here and it will show me the SQL that's used to kind of create this. So then you can basically take the SQL, copy it, do whatever you want with it, and go from there. If that
So
makes
if
sense.
if you don't know what views already exist, how do you, you
so
have to
if you
look through
don't,
each table or?
well, basically, yeah, they'll have a list of views. So like we can find the views either through the terminal or through like an IDE like this. Just like when we issue show tables, show views, show databases in the command prompt. That's essentially what we're doing here. So like this is a list of all my views because they are different than a table. So like these are all my tables. So they're kind of bucketed differently. And hopefully someone's named them so they're somewhat intuitive. But yeah, hopefully
Okay.
but yeah, basically you just kind of got to look at them. If you're looking for specific ones, I know that there's some clever ways you can query what's called the data dictionary, and find information about certain like tables. Like you can like look for certain things, but yeah, for the most part, you're best to kind of just go through, look at them. Like, so for example, like in our film category actor, I could take a look at this and say like, oh, this basically takes all the film actor, film category, and category, ties them all together in a nice, easy way. And so there it is.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions?
I don't have a question necessarily on this yet because I'm just now getting to it because I've had other assignments and other classes, but I haven't looked at the chapter or at the exercises. Is it pretty self-explanatory? Are they pretty easy?
Yes. Yep. They're like I said, yeah, fairly straightforward this week. Let me just double check the exercises. I looked at them earlier, but nothing stood out to me. Okay.
Number 1 and 2 are always in the back of the book, by the way.
Are they? Awesome. Yeah, and to me, they are exercises. So
yeah,
let's see. Yep. Okay. So this one is just queries the country table and uses a scalar subquery to calculate a value for the total number of payments, which isn't too bad. Write a non-updatable view that displays the following result set. Rating distribution. I remember this one being a little tricky. Oh, yeah. This one used to be, this one's gotten some people. So let me show you this one real quick, because this one has gotten a few people. So this one is basically we want a view that shows the count of films in each rating. And you'll notice that these are columns, right?
Yeah.
Which has thrown people off because right now they're in rows. So we kind of got to pivot our data. So the ratings come from the film table. So let's select everything from film. There it is. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say select distinct rating from film to make this easier. Select distinct rating from film. So right now, this is where our rating data is. It's here inside of our, you'll notice we don't have a rating table, which would be ideal. That would be the best solution. But right now our rating data is in rows in the film table. So it's not standardized, if you will. So what we need to do is we need to pivot this data out. And the easiest way to kind of pivot data in MySQL, because it lacks, there actually is some databases that support a pivot function. MySQL does not. So the easiest way is to actually just use a case statement. So I'll just show you this one. So basically what we're going to do, because we want each rating. So that's, let me order this so it's in order so I can just mentally ignore that. All right. So if I want to go through this order, basically what I'm going to do is I want each one of these to be a column. So I'm just going to start by saying null as G, null as PG, null as PG13, null as R, and null as NC17. All right, so now I can kind of do this and you'll see that we get all of our stuff, but they're all null, which is great. And so basically now what we have to do is we need to kind of aggregate this for us. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by saying count. Well, we can just say the count of everything. And if I do this, you'll notice that we're going to get literally the count of everything on all of these, which is all the same, which I guess is a nice little starting point. So there we go. So now what we need to do is we just need to filter out each one of these to match the column that they're in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say case when rating is equal to G, then film ID, end. And now I get my 179. So basically we're going to do this whole thing for each one of these, just with their respective rating. So this one is going to be PG. This one's going to be PG13. This one's going to be R. And this one is going to be NC R. Get out of here. This one is going to be NC17. And there we go. 170. I think I've added an extra movie. 194, 223, 195, and 210. And
Can I see how you did that again?
yes.
Okay.
So basically I've used select statements to kind of pivot that data out.
Okay.
Yes, that is the easiest way. And then the last question, so that's the only one that could be a little tricky, because just so you know, this is a kind of, even when I was learning, this took me a long time to kind of like realize. Like I was like, wow, this is a clever use of this, because you'll find that you end up needing it more than not when you're doing reporting. And maybe I just wasn't doing reporting a whole ton in the beginning, but anyways, it has since become a staple for me. So it is a nice one to kind of keep on the back of your mind. Question 4 is we write a view that basically gets the number of films made for each actor by year. So that one shouldn't be too hard either. We've kind of done that before. In fact, it's really similar to the query we just did where we did payments or total revenue. Just, you'll use a count and on different tables. Okay, so this one is our rent ratio. Oh, this one gets a little tricky too. So this one, basically we want a rent ratio. It comes from, there's a column value found in the film stats view of chapter 14. So this one kind of gives you some film stats. And if I remember right, rental stats view should have the following. Oh, so this one we make an enum, so on and so forth. Okay, so this one isn't too bad. The rental stats view should have the following structure when you describe it. Yada, yada. Okay, so this one, I think most of the answers in the book. But we can, let's see, 130 rows. Yeah, I think this one's not too bad either, because this one you don't have to pivot anything. It's kind of there. So basically the rent ratio. The rent ratio is we're dividing the number of rentals by the inventory count. So select everything. So really it's like taking, select everything from, see, how would this work? It would be film F, left join, inventory I. Then we would left join rental R on, and I think rental is the one that has inventory. Yes. I dot inventory ID equals. All right, so there is all that. So now, like, if we wanted kind of like a ratio per rating, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select F dot rating. And then what was it? It was the dividing the number of rentals. So I'm just going to put that in. So I'm going to say count distinct R dot rental ID. The reason I'm doing account distinct versus account everything is because because I'm left joining, there may be some movies that's never been rented, in which case we want to make sure we're not counting those as rented because they weren't. So if I do account distinct of rental ID, we're not going to count nulls. So count distinct rental ID, and we're going to call this as num rentals. And then count distinct I dot inventory ID. An inventory table. What is the inventory table? Select everything from inventory. Make sure we have a firm grasp of this. So basically, it's every movie in a store. So for example, in store 1, there are 4 copies of whatever film ID 1 is. So basically, we're counting how many films there actually are. So our film ratio is going to be ending up okay, for every, how many rentals do we get per movie that we have in our store? So I'm just going to go ahead and run this. And we fail because we need a group by. So we're going to group by F dot rating. And there we go. So now we kind of have our total number of kind of like our, I guess you could say our things going on here, which is great. And let's take a look here. Assuming you should be able to run the following query, yada, yada. And I think I'm cheating here just a little bit because I think they want this per film necessary, I think. And I think we're pre-aggregating. Let's see. Yes, we are pre-aggregating. So let's do this. Let's, because we don't want to group this, because the one thing missing from their little view is F dot film ID. All right. We will want to group because we want the total number. Group by F dot film ID, F dot rating. There we go. So now if we wanted to kind of take our, let's swap these so they make sense here. Actually, no, that's right. That's right. And so now if we wanted to get our actual number, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take our nominator, which is the number of rentals per inventory. And we're going to call this rent ratio. There we go. Something along those lines. Cool. And I think there might be a little bit more to it, but the book has the kind of like the starting point that might give us a little bit more insight into kind of like what the filters are here. But I think this is pretty close.
Thank you for your help.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you.
for sure. But anyways, that's 1 through 5. If you get stuck on something, let me know. More than happy to jump in and help, because it'll probably benefit everyone. So if something on question 5 does end up being weird, just let me know.
Thanks.
Yep. Thank you. And thanks for coming. And this is actually our last meeting. And I know there's only 2 of you left, but anyways, thanks for a great term. Have a great week. And again, if you need something, let me know.
I actually had one question on question 3. I don't know if I missed it or not.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
When it says talks about the lowercase and the uppercase, is that just basically putting a whole nother select statement for, like, when it says select G? If you have a lowercase, then all the columns need to be lowercase. But if you select an uppercase, all the columns need to be uppercase. Is that basically just doing the same exact select statement, but switching over to
What's
lowercase?
cool, if we make this a view, and that part of the question is really weird to me because I don't know why that matters, why you'd ever even care. I think it's
Okay.
more there as like a for your info, because I remember when I first ran across this, I was like, whoa, that is bizarre. Like I had no idea it would do that. So if I select G from rating distribution, you'll notice that it's a lowercase g. If I select a G, it's an uppercase G, but it pulls the same number. So if you just build the view, it actually does that by default. So that part of the question's a little bit weird. In fact, the first time I saw it, I'm like, man, like, don't we need like a procedure for that or something? I'm like, this is weird.
Yeah.
And then I did some digging and I'm like, oh, it literally just depends on how you select it. So like really the way that question should read is build the view, and then, hey, as a fun little tidbit, you can just select the column name with an uppercase or lowercase and the results will match, which I don't know why that matters.
Interesting. Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure there wasn't something I was missing there.
Oh yeah, no, I'm glad you brought it up because I completely had forgotten about that. And anyways, it's weird. Like I don't know why that's such a big deal in that little question. In fact, I might just reword it right now so don't get stuck on it, because I remember even I got stuck on it. I'm like, that is just, and even now I'm like, still like, that is just bizarre. I don't know. I it's cool.
Yeah.
I just don't know why I don't know why anyone would care. You know what I mean? Like I just,
Yeah.
anyways, but yes, thank you for asking.
Thank you so much for a great semester.
Yep.
I
You are
appreciate it.
welcome. Yep. Thank you guys.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Yep. Have a good one.
See ya.
See ya.